Yesterday we focused on an offertory sentence from 2 Corinthians chapter 9 that ended with the line, "For God loves a cheerful giver." We noted that this reflects Paul's belief that generosity should not be forced, but should be from the heart, so to speak. But that's not the end of Paul's thought. He continues his line of thinking, and that's what today's offertory sentences will pick up. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. We already know this from Paul. First, that giving ought to be from the heart, that giving which is compulsory is not worth as much as giving that is self-determined. Second, we know that generosity itself is a cardinal virtue for Paul because it reflects the generosity of God toward us. God did not have to offer us salvation in Jesus Christ, but He did. Paul believes that our lives ought to reflect that same kind of generosity toward others. Now, Paul adds another dimension to his thoughts on generosity, and this is reflected in today's offertory sentence. Quoting the end of 2 Corinthians 9:7 and continuing into verse 8, Paul says, "God loves a cheerful giver, and God is able to provide us with every blessing in abundance, so that by always having enough of everything, we may share abundantly in every good work." Is Paul referring to financial abundance here? Is he saying that God provides us with the financial wherewithal to be able to give? Very possibly. At the very least, Paul is suggesting that we can't outgive God because God has been more generous to us than we could ever possibly imagine, let alone be generous to others. Most of that generosity is the mercy and grace of God in saving us from our sin and receiving us into the family and household of God, a gift of far greater value than mere money. But we also know that Paul generally believed that God does bless us with material well-being. That is, all good things ultimately do come from God's hand. Our ability to work and earn is a gift of God. The natural order enables us to grow and produce crops of various sorts. At the very least, we can point to these as ways that God provides for our material well-being. But there is a bit more to it than that for Paul. Paul seems to suggest here what he will make plain later in this same chapter, namely, that our generosity has a way of multiplying our material well-being. Now, let's not go overboard here. Paul isn't practicing what we would call today the prosperity gospel. This is the message that some evangelists push that says that the more we give to the church, the more God will bless us with money and wealth. I do not believe for an instant that's what Paul's point is at all. I think his point is more like the more generous we are, the more personal satisfaction we will have in life. If we worry too much about our material wealth, we will always tend to be filled with anxiety. But when we're generous, it enables us to let go of our attachment to material wealth, and then we come to realize that we really do have everything we need, and then some. Giving won't make us materially richer, but it does tend to make us happier people. For we come more and more to the place where we can let go of our attachment to things and simply be grateful for what we do have. In this passage, Paul was encouraging the Corinthians to give to an offering for the support of the church in Jerusalem. But his words are as true today as they were then. God indeed loves a cheerful giver, and God provides everything we need in abundance so that we too can show others the same generosity that God has shown us. Tomorrow, perhaps the shortest but most well-known verse on giving. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.